This is being presented by Cycling Form and Fitness. I'm your host, Jeff Melcher. If you didn't know, I'm an Ironman and USAT certified coach. I'm bike fit certified, and I've been trained by John Cobb on bike fitting most recently. So our guest today is Jeff Wandschneider. I believe he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's done 14 Ironman full distance races, including the latest one, the World Championship at Kona in 2024. So do I have that right, Jeff? Has it been
That's
14
correct.
races?
That's correct.
So you did 12 for the legacy, and did you have to do one like in that gap
Yeah,
year?
I had to do the 13th one to qualify. Um, and then actually I signed up for the 14th one and had to get out for an injury. So backing up, I completed 13,
All right.
which is what you need for legacy.
Okay. Right. So what was your first full distance Ironman, and how did that go, and why did you do it?
Well, my first full distance was 2003. Um, I did my first triathlon in 2000. I work for a company that started with a seal mask product called Aquasphere in 1999. And being a high school swimmer, I thought it would be good to use the product and actually get into some races. And just loved the competition and all of the three sports put together. Loved the training aspect, the variety, and signed up for my first one in 2003 with really no expectations. I felt I did pretty well because I think the overall temperature was with the humidity was like 104, and it was just a brutal day.
Bring us down.
A lot of people had dropped out, and I did a 12:45, so I thought I was, pretty good at that point and could do a little bit better.
And what course is that again?
That was Madison.
Madison. Okay, so Wisconsin was your first one.
Exactly.
So how many times have you done Wisconsin then? That's the next question. We'll go to some photos once we get to talking about one of the more epic Wisconsin races.
Yeah, being a local race, and as many as I've done, it is by far, in my opinion, probably one of the best on the circuit. So I did 2003, 2004, 2012, 2015, 2018, 2019, and 2022. So I've done Wisconsin 7 times.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up the photos of one that's probably most memorable. I remember that this one was just such a hard day, and I actually was coaching a couple people, and I lost them in T2, but this is you on the bike. So just describe a few of the highlights from 2022.
Yeah, 2022 was brutal. I got up at 3:34 in the morning to get ready for the day, and the wind and the rain was just completely sideways. Ended up having that for almost the entire day. So the whole 15, that was probably my longer races. The whole 15 hours was just rain and wind and cold. A lot of people dropped out because of hypothermia. But it was definitely a mental game. So completing that one and getting ready for Kona for 2024 I think it was a big help.
Yeah, sometimes when we go through those really challenging races and we come out the other side, okay, we're just a little bit stronger because of it.
Exactly. Exactly right.
So are you the guy with the rain jacket, or are you the guy in the blue kit going with sleeves or
I'm the
no
guy in the rain
sleeves?
jacket, and
Uh,
that was a savior. Um,
yeah,
it,
I
ca-
heard that
it,
you
ca-
had dressed warm for that race, and the guys I was coaching, I don't think they got that memo, and I probably didn't set them up well enough to even preach about how important it was to stay warm on the bike.
yeah, and I felt staying warm was important, and if I needed to peel and get rid of the layers, you can do that. But if you don't start the race with the layers, you can't get there. So here's me starting to run. Obviously, my wife, she's been involved in all of the races, and we're just kind of coming out of T2. I spent an hour in T2 warming up. So, and I had to keep moving away from people who are quitting. because
Yeah,
I didn't
I,
want that
I,
to go into my brain.
I think my two coach athletes were probably down the street in the restaurant by that time.
uh,
Yeah, and I could not imagine that because I'm probably not as mentally tough as I would want to be. But you go through these things one at a time, and you keep realizing you can do it. Was this going out for the run, or was it during the run?
yeah, that was just coming out of T2, just starting on the run. So I probably not even out a mile yet. So,
So what
and
we're talking next is just like some of those key lessons learned. But one was obviously you dressed, you had a rain jacket or at least a windbreaker on the bike, and then you have this rain jacket you use during the run. Did
yep.
you ever overheat, or were you feeling pretty comfortable, or were you ever cold? How did you fare for the bike in the run?
Well, I never overheated. One of the things I was cognitive of is how much I was sweating underneath because obviously you worry about your water intake and your electrolytes. And so I was, constantly going into my jacket, making sure I was not overheating. But I would say one of the most difficult things of these Ironman races is just something happens that's beyond your control, you know, whether it's weather, wind, rain, it could be bike maintenance. I lost an hour at Whistler because I went to my CO2 cartridge and it was empty. It was never used, but it was empty. So I waited almost an hour for road assistance. So again, it's just, and then again, 2022, the rain the whole day. So you just
What's your
have to.
mindset at that point? I mean, you have to be a good problem solver, but you also have to have a mindset that you're not going to give up. You're just going to keep going almost no matter what.
Exactly. I mean, the only reason that I would ever quit would be, due to an injury or, possibly getting hurt. But again, the mindset is never to quit. It's just to keep going, keep moving forward.
And did you ever have a DNF? Doing a full or 70.3, did you ever have a race where you had to pull out?
No, I've not.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Such a long career and no DNFs. That speaks volumes as well.
Yep.
All right, well, that's interesting. Then in your Kona prep, I remember that you did Des Moines 70.3, and I think that was like a return to speed. If I remember right, that was your fastest 70.3 since 2019 Door County, and that was one of the goals you had. I think you just wanted to kind of work on getting a little faster, getting some of that speed back. So do you recall Des Moines and how that went?
Yes, I do. And it was actually my first race, with you coaching me. And I think all the build up to that and, the training more with heart rate and even more with power, um, I think really got me involved to have a good race. And then in maybe hindsight, I peaked a little bit early because that Door County race, which followed, we had a little bit tougher weather that day, but that was definitely a tougher race. But I do remember doing well there, and it was a great feeling. Again, getting ready for Kona in October. It was I've always done two or three half Ironman races in preparation for Kona, and really have spaced them out. So it worked out really well.
And that was one of those races too, where like Des Moines was very good conditions, and Door County was really hot on the run.
Yeah,
You remember that? I had a lot of
exactly.
people that added like a half hour on their race, and you know how it is. You got to back off on the bike somewhat on those hot days because you just know if it's going to fall apart, it's going to be on the run.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is you just as long as I've been doing this, you just have to be happy with your time and happy with what you're doing on that day.
Right?
Um, and being positive and smiling and talking to other racers. That's something I always do, and it's a benefit to be out there.
Yeah, there's PR days where we could have a time that we're fixated on, and but at the end of the day, it's all about your experience during the race and your experience like passing those good vibes to other people. And if you do
Exactly.
that well enough, you'll stay in the sport a long time, which is probably one of the reasons why you've stayed in the sport so long, is
Exactly.
that shared positivity.
Yep, I agreed.
All right, so then switching gears, we'll move on to the Kona race. And I do remember some of that too. We did a couple prep rides in the basement. Once we got our eyes on the course, we decided to do the key sections via Ruby because at least it was going to get, I guess, you and me with our heads wrapped around how long the climbs went and how did the gradients feel. I thought that was pretty cool. That was kind of a novel idea that worked out pretty well. Anything that you have to share about your preparation for Kona?
Um, I think I think my prep was good. I think I wish I would have spent more time riding in aero position. I think riding with groups and riding with friends, even though I was on my tri bike a lot, I think it's important if you see that position that you're in now, it's important to be able to be there for the majority of that 6 hour day or 7 hour day on the bike. And I think my body was not ready to do that. And about mile 80, the bike, my body just started to fall apart, and I had neck problems, and didn't
Well,
at some point didn't think I was going to finish the bike.
yeah, let's do that. Let's go through the day. So I do recall the bike fitting, and I would say that my error was probably that was a little bit more for a 70.3 specialist, maybe not for the full distance specialist. I just think about it, looking hindsight's 2020.
Right.
We could probably raise the front end. And then of course, to your point, you wish you had trained more in the aero position just because once it came to race day, things were good until they were bad, right? And why don't you talk
Yeah.
about that? Because I know that you had your neck almost failed towards the end of the race.
Well, and I did on the first turn of the swim, I got bit by a jellyfish, and it was on my ankle, and I felt it, and it really itched on the bike. And then about mile 80, I just could not I could not support my neck up in order to be in the arrows. In fact, you see how I'm riding there. I almost had to do the last 13 miles totally upright. And even that was hard. And again, it could have been contributed to the winds as well. Um,
Yeah, so you had the jellyfish sting, you had the winds that were, we just don't get a lot of that for sustained crosswinds in Wisconsin like what you had that day.
yeah, the crosswinds are enormous coming off the ocean on the Queen K. So it's a tough bike course. It's a really tough race.
Yeah, I mean, if I go back to the profile and just look how many feet of climbing they advertised, I mean, we read this going into it, but 5,814 feet of elevation gain. Yeah, that's a tough course.
Yeah,
Lots of
yeah,
climbing.
well, and fortunate we did not have the heat that you normally get in Kona. So I think that was a savior.
So
So
one of the cool things that I remember you saying was you got into the transition, you had some help with people assisting the neutral support, and you got on the run. So why don't you describe what happened during T2?
yeah, no, I got into T2, and it took me a long time to rack my bike and even get my bags and get into and get ready. And I thought, again, you think about quitting and you think about how do you explain it. And I thought, you know what? I know how the run is. It's out about 3 miles and back about 3 miles. I got to do at least six, you know. And I got out there, and as you can see, that we had some rain, which cooled things off, and it ended up to be just a good day, a good journey, and it's just an epic event, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think you said you didn't even know if you'd be able to go out for the run because you couldn't hold your head up for the last few miles of the bike. I think
yes,
you almost went off course and you almost were worried about running into other competitors. And then you got a little bit of icy hot and assistance and you were able to accomplish the run, which is just so awesome. And it
yeah,
speaks
no.
volumes about having that, iron will just to keep pushing forward.
Exactly. Exactly right.
Well, if it plays well, I also have the finish video, so let's go to that. You never know how these things are going to play, but let's do this.
Makes me cry. Yes. Nice. Whew. Brings back good
Yeah,
memories.
yeah, what a
50.
way to wrap it all up, with your name on the board and everybody cheering.
Yeah. I mean, when you
It's
think
a,
about that event, I mean, that is the Super Bowl triathlon. And
right.
you are racing with all of the people that are the fastest because the majority of people have qualified for being fast. And we did have about 250 racers that qualified through Legacy. So at least I was out there with others, you know, qualifying, but not necessarily qualifying because of speed, qualifying because of the commitment to doing those races. And
Yeah,
and growing up
either
and
way,
watching this,
either way, that's an admirable path. Either you do it by legacy and that wherewithal that many people can never withstand 13 full distance Ironmans, and to make it to this finish line after like a lifetime of Ironman is
yeah,
a huge accomplishment.
yeah, it was tw 20 years, and I did lose a year in COVID, where there were no races, but it was a 20-year journey. And again, growing up watching this event on Wide World of Sports, and then being able to run down Leahy Drive is just amazing.
Yeah, anything else you would want to share about your journey? I understand like talking about this stuff can be tear invoking, but is this the key supporters, the what got you through those 20 years into this finish line? It's a big deal. So,
Yeah, I
I
would.
know you had your wife and you had Kurt May and a few others really that were key supporters throughout your journey.
Yeah, it's really important to have a key group and being able to go out and train with people and not doing everything by yourself. I was fortunate that my wife loved the events and talking to people from around the world that are at these races. We got a chance to experience places like, Penticton, Lake Placid, Whistler, Arizona, you know, Chattanooga. So again, it just being able to do 7 races here and locally and traveling to 6 races and then Kona, it was fun. It's part of a family event, and we all look forward to it.
Oh, yeah. And I got to remember the Bulletin shoots too, David and Carol and the
Yep, Dave and
family.
Carol. Yeah, I mean, so, but over the years, I've been at it so long, you lose people. My friend Chip Regal, Bill Kaler, you know, Dave and Carol, and yeah, it's important to have the group, and even the people from Extreme and Mike Campbell training over the years, and
Mhm.
it's good.
Yeah, I know people ask me that same question too. Like, what makes you stick with this for so long? But it becomes a way of life, and it becomes the foundation for a lot of the relationships that matter most. Not that you can't have relationships outside of sport, but those ones that we suffer together, we accomplish together, they are very meaningful.
Exactly, exactly. Well, and it's just fun to be active and exercising. I'm just fortunate enough to get back from Steamboat Springs. I did the SPT gravel race out there, so changing gears a little bit with endurance, and I'll get back to triathlon. And 70.3 is really my distance. I think I might be done with the full distance, but there will be more 70.3s in my career. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That call it 5 to 7 hour race durations a little bit easier for people to train to with, and
Exactly.
that's what I'm dealing with too. I have a bad knee right now. I think it's going to come around, but I'm doing a sprint this weekend because you know what? I still love the sport. I want to do it
Yep.
with the team and with the people I coach. So in some capacity, we try to keep moving forward with it as long as we can.
Exactly. Agreed.
All right. Well, any other closing thoughts as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would I think we're about 8 weeks away from Wisconsin. And I think for those who are participating, hopefully you've rode the bike course a couple times because I would say it's a tough one. The hills just keep coming at you. The downhills are very technical, so you just can't tuck and ride. Um, so I always try to get out there at least 3 or 4 times, ride a loop, go out the next time, ride 2 loops, go out the next time and ride 2 loops plus the exchanger back. Um, so hope there's still time to be able to do that. But putting in those training rides on the actual course is a huge benefit for us being local. Um,
Mhm.
so I would definitely, if you're racing Ironman this year and you haven't done that, I would definitely carve out some time and get out there. So, and then
And
my
then
other,
this again, like in transitions, you have to do the things you have to do. So some races, I would imagine your transitions is boom, boom, boom. I can get this done in 6 minutes, and it's no big deal. I'm not even rushed. But when you're thinking about having a windbreaker or wearing socks or how to stay warm, there was probably some transitions for Wisconsin like 2022 where you took some time.
oh yeah, yep. My thought of process was if you're doing a 12 to 15 hour race, spending a little bit extra time in T2 and being comfortable, and getting out of your swim stuff and drying off and, getting comfortable for that long bike ride. And then kind of coming back and doing the same thing in T2, get out of that wet biking clothes and get into your running stuff. It's a good opportunity to relax a little bit, take on some nutrition, some water, some food, and then, you know, rejuvenate yourself for the next segment. So it's good. It's Ironman is a really good organization, and they do a great job with the races, and the volunteers are amazing. Yeah, I would recommend people signing
How do
up
you
for it and
feel?
train for it.
Yeah, how do you feel about the recent announcement that it's going to be Kona for men and women going forward for the foreseeable future? You
Well,
probably like that aspect.
I kind of foresee that, and I'm surprised it took them this long, but they did try. Um,
Mhm.
I think it makes it a better race, to have the men and women involved. I do know it makes it easier for husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend type thing that they're competing together. They're not in separate places, separate locations. Um, so I think that will be good. I think it will keep the Ironman racing going and keep people signing up.
Right. Well, if you have anything else, please feel free to add it in. But if not, I think we can wrap this up. So, any other thoughts?
No, I appreciate the time and the coaching that you've offered and the help and the assistance. And I do wish all of the participants coming up in Wisconsin the best of luck and enjoy the day and smile.
Yeah, I mean, I know we got Chad Steger. He's doing Chattanooga as a full. We have Becca and Stas doing Wisconsin. I'm gonna miss people, but I want to send this out to the extreme endurance group so they can hear the different lessons learned that you had to share and the journey because I think
Yeah,
it's very inspiring. So
and,
thanks
and
for
they're not.
sharing your inspirational story.
Yeah, and any of those athletes, I do know them. If they're interested in talking to me or meeting for coffee or anything, I would be happy to help out in any way.
That sounds great. All
Thank
right.
you,
Well,
Jeff.
with that being said, we'll stop this recording so I can get this out to everybody. And thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.